Today on People and Money, I have a very special guest, Jamie Ruthenberg.
Nice to meet you.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Well, good. Thank you for coming around.
Thank you for having me.
An author, an illustrator. We'll get into all that. Wrote a great book for kids. But before we go there, this is really your home.
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
tell us a little bit. Mom's still living here.
She just,
Clinton
yep,
Township.
she lives a block away. Yeah, no, absolutely. We moved here from the east side of Detroit when I was 9. And so I went to Clinton Valley and Algonquin and Chippewa Valley. And grew up here.
That's fun.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we like stories when local people do well. And you started, we're going to talk a little bit about the book, but you got a pretty interesting background. You started illustrating and developed character and stuff when you were very young, actually.
Mm-hmm.
It was always fun for you?
Yeah, it was what I gravitated toward naturally. My first memories as a child was, on a rainy day, a lot of the kids, they play with their blocks and watch movies all day. I sat and I sketched little critters and animals and this little bunny face all day long. So it's what I love to do. It's what I love to do. And I used to write little poems. I used to write little kind of somewhat Hallmark cards, trying to think of some kind of, event that was coming up or somebody's birthday and little poems.
Like Mr. Deeds.
Right, so.
Card,
yeah.
sure. Well, that, a lot of people do, like I cartooned as a kid, I doodle now, but for the most part, people start early on in life doing something and then totally transition to something else. But you actually, you taught for a while, and you still do it here and there, like the kindergartners. They're fun.
Yeah.
The book that we're going to talk about a little bit, Miles and the Sneaky Squirrels.
Yes.
Interesting to me. I don't read a lot of children's books, except for my granddaughters, but there's a whole lot more here. It's a cute story. I'm not going to give it away. We're going to talk about the book later, where you can get it.
Absolutely.
But also, you make it a point to bring in some life lessons. I actually picked up some things as an adult, which was interesting for me.
Well, that's nice, Well, absolutely. The themes. Now, this is the first in a series. Also, this is the very first book. The next book will be coming out in March, and throughout the entire series, and of course in this book also, the themes I think are very strong, and they're about treating others as you'd want to be treated. Generosity, solving conflict in a loving, respectful way, thinking before acting. And also family and comfort in family, and all of these things, of course, are not only life lessons for little ones, but for adults and everyone who would read it.
All due respect, aren't we a little bit away from that? I know because if you write a children's book, you've read hundreds of children's books and gotten ideas. And is there anything you've seen recently that you really didn't care for, looking at children's books?
So many things. I was in the classroom a lot. Actually, I've taught writing to people who are in college, university level, and then I also taught writing to 5-year-olds in the kindergarten class. And it's a different time right now, where everything is going 90 miles an hour and everything's edited every 2 seconds, and people have the attention span of a chipmunk, and kind of losing that kind of thinking, stopping a moment, spending time together as a family, that valuable time you spend with your family and shared, loving time together. All of that is kind of hard to come by nowadays with our crazy lifestyle. So this book kind of brings that in again, and it's kind of a throwback to, a little simpler time of spending time together.
In today's electronic world, gosh, the kids in kindergarten, they give them Kindles and iBooks and 100 other
texting and
things.
FaceTiming and all this.
And how does that make you feel? Okay, so you're an author, you're a businesswoman. You say, would you put your book online? So they could read it electronically?
Interestingly, yes, I would. Kindle, I don't mind doing that. If it's how a child reads, if they'll read a book, if they can get it on Kindle, then absolutely. I think it's worth doing, and I actually am going to do that soon.
So do you think that takes away a little bit from all the things you talked about? I mean, with regard to, here you have the family interaction and the discussion. And,
right, and a lot of times
and here
kids are sitting
they're
with
on
Kindle.
these electronics all day, and then they
Right.
pick up their electronic to read about Miles. I mean,
well, the fun thing
does
is it's
that
a
take
book.
some out of it?
I don't think so, because it's a book. It's a story. So they're not really playing video games. They're reading. They're reading a story. So to me, if that's the only way they're going to read the story, then I'm for it. Do I like the old? I mean, I'm old school. I like the feel of a book in my hands. There's something about it that just doesn't feel the same to me than a Kindle. But I'm not 5 years old or 6 years old, and I'm not, living. That's a different time, and their experiences are different than me in the 70s. So, if it means they'll read it, yeah, absolutely, I'd do that.
So, with that in mind, I just this morning was reading an article that the legislature is trying to pass something with regard to children being able to read by 3rd grade or basically be held back, which is not a popular thing anymore. It's almost like you just keep moving on forward. What do you feel is the largest cause? And we understand poverty and tough education, inner city, and all that. But what do you feel the distractions are? Why young kids just don't establish that reading thought anymore?
There's probably so many factors, but there are just a few that popped in my head. Again, the technological age. There are, just as an example, Miles, the main character, he writes 2 letters in the story, 2 handwritten letters. You can't find, people don't handwrite letters anymore. The act of writing isn't as prevalent as texting in acronyms and, BTW, by the way, and there's not that process and that flow of writing. And with that is reading and writing. So I think that contributes to it in some way. I really do. And also I think, our school systems, like you said, it's not as common, it's not as popular now to be holding people back. And it's not necessarily a bad thing in all cases where we want to educate the individual and we're trying to move them forward. And so sometimes, keeping a child back isn't necessarily what the system wants to do. So that's
You actually have a recipe in the book.
I do. I have a recipe. I'm a foodie. I grew up in my grandmother's kitchen. My grandmother was Sicilian, off the boat, as they say. And I spent my entire childhood in my grandmother's kitchen. Just rolling dough and making like 30 loaves of bread in a day and stirring sauces. So that's really instilled in me, like food to me is art and family and comfort and a way to show your love to the people that you love. So, and that's why I thought it was important to incorporate it into the book. So in every book, this is the first one, but in every book there is a recipe, and the mothers cherished some recipe in the book that she makes with Miles. And it's not, the story isn't centered on that, but it's a part of the story where they share it with the people they love at the end. And at the end, if you flip the book over, at the back cover is the recipe to what they made. So you can eat. The children who are reading this can eat, or maybe make this with their own parents or uncle or grandmother, and experience what Miles experienced in the book, so draw them into it even more.
So Miles, seemed to be a pretty good bunny. Solving problems in a good way and upbeat, and positive. Is that really today's world?
In some cases, I encountered some children like this, absolutely. And they really, to be honest with you, they came from, when you met the parents, you saw why this child is who he or she is, and they're loving homes, and that's what this is about. He has integrity, he's honest, he's loving to others, and he treats others with respect. And he does that because his mother actually spends value. I mean, of course he is who he is and part of who Miles is, but also his mother spends this time with him. And when she does this, she spends her valuable time with this young bunny because she loves him, and he knows that. It makes him feel valuable, and so he sees others the same way, with integrity and someone with intrinsic value. And that's kind of stems from all that. That's a big message in this series. So,
who's Gracie?
Gracie's my daughter.
Gracie's your daughter?
Yes.
'Cause I know it was dedicated, and does she like the book? Does she like the character? She's 13?
She's 13, yes. She adores him.
Does she help you?
She's a writer too, by the way. She's writing her own fantasy novel right now. It's amazing. But she, yes, I bounce things off of her, and in fact, I'm writing the next book right now, and I read it to her, got her input, and yeah, she's actually a very valuable person to have around when I'm writing.
Have there been any other books prior to this one?
Not in the children's genre. Not in the. I've published poetry. I published a novel when it was my thesis that I wrote at University of North Carolina. But in terms of children's books, no. When When I was pregnant with Gracie, and I amassed a huge children's library of books because I was just really wanted to read to this child. And as soon as she got home from the hospital, I started reading to her. And that's really how I started getting into the children's lit genre, is just seeing I really started to appreciate it and saw what was out in the market and what I loved in terms of as an artist and a writer, and then also maybe what I thought was lacking in some of, in the market. So yeah.
There's obviously a creative process that goes into all of this. You
Yes.
actually do your own illustrations as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Does that take what time frame to put a book like this together?
It's quite a process. This one took me about a year and a half, believe it or not. This next one, because it's a learning process and I kind of have a nice groove going, so it's not going to take me as long. I'll have the next one out in March. But it is. The first thing I do is format the whole book in my own way that speaks to me, where I'm not only writing the book, the text, but I'm also describing the illustrations that will coincide with the writing of each page. And once I do that, then I have to, it's kind of funny, in the literature world they call it or in the art world they call it a dummy. I like to call it a prototype, but I actually will put staple pieces of paper together and then start mapping out where everything's going to be in terms of white space and the art, so I know where the text will go. And then from then on, I can start actually creating the art and painting. And that's the longest part of the process. That takes
Painting.
some time. Yes, absolutely.
Do you have anybody help you?
No,
Also, it's a one-person book?
That's a one-person book. Yep. He's sketched. I used number 2 pencil and watercolor, and the writing part is a little quicker for me. I've been a professional writer all my life, but I never have been formally trained in art.
It's very good.
Thank you very much. And it's the first time I actually used watercolor ever when I used this book, or when I started doing the illustrations for this book. So it took a little time, but I think things are coming along nicely, but yeah.
Competitively, from my own experience and I actually know people, a lot of people write children's books, children's stories. There's millions of them out there. What do you hope to have happen where, for some reason, somebody goes to the store for their daughter, their granddaughter, whomever, and they say, I want to get them a book. Who are you targeting here? Anybody that wants to buy a book, and then you look across the line, what's going to make this unique and pop for people?
Okay. What I think is special about this book, first of all, and it's really to me, birth till the time where the child is tired of it and isn't interested in it anymore. But what's really special to me are the themes that I think people are moved by, and you don't see in every book nowadays. All of the themes of respecting and loving others and generosity. But what also is nice is another little target market is, because I'm certified in elementary education, I wanted to create a book that had educational integrity, because after being in the classroom, I saw what teachers appreciate, how they even use the books, how they even organize them in crates by theme and so forth, how they use them in lesson plans. So I actually tailored the book to be not only a great addition to a child's library at home, but a teacher can use it in the classroom for several different ways. And there's actually a little note and a letter in the back of the book that kind of addresses that in terms of how you can use the book in the classroom.
You alluded earlier to the fact there's a couple of handwritten letters,
Yes.
and which I found interesting. First of all, because they were handwritten letters,
Right.
and somehow, do you feel that the teachers of today, especially elementary, young, kindergarten, first, second grade, are over-absorbed with the technology? Because we all live it every day. I mean, adults are on the phone texting while they're driving, as well as everything else they're doing, and shortcuts, and all of a sudden, email everybody. Do you feel that maybe you can draw people a little bit back to the fact that writing a letter, writing a note by hand still has some value in this world?
Absolutely, yes, and that's kind of my hope. When I was a student teaching, I had to actually teach a lesson to the kindergarten class on letter writing. And I couldn't find I could not find a book, because usually we'd have to support the lesson with the children's book. I went through the entire, as much as I could, of the library at the school, my own library, and I didn't find one book that I could use And I told myself, I need to do this. I need to add this to whatever I do in the future with this. I want that'll be a part of it, because yeah, it is important because they actually still teach it in kindergarten, first grade, but there's not a whole lot to support it, and there's not a whole lot that you don't really instill in the child a lot of reason to even do this because of everything else that's happening with all their fun little gadgets.
Right.
So if you can have a story that really gives it some value, I think it's important. I really do.
Do you think you'd ever weaken at the knees and in the Miles series put a cell phone in there or put a computer in there?
Well, I wouldn't put a cell phone, and I don't think I'd put a computer, but I did do a little. I'm not sure if it actually came across as a selfie, but it's a little bit of a selfie at the end. In the letter to parents and adults and teachers, there's a little selfie of Miles and the two squirrels that is implied he became friends with them. So, but yeah, so I have fun with it that way, absolutely.
But Miles isn't going to be carrying his iPhone in the next
No, he's
book.
not going to be sitting with a table of people staring at his phone. That's exactly
good.
what we're not going to have.
The Miles, the character, interesting little bunny, and the story is. I like I said, I won't tell the story. It's pretty. I had fun with it.
You can tell the story. It's okay.
I had fun with it. It's the two squirrels. Actually, I thought in the beginning Miles was a squirrel when I first talked to you before I actually looked at the book. It's amazing to me. I was waiting for something bad to happen. Now, I don't know if that's because of the world today or I was expecting them to chase the squirrels up the tree,
Right.
throw one off the branch or something. But that isn't where it went. I got to that point. In fact, my wife was looking at me. I said, that's not how I would have handled
I
this.
know a lot of
But,
people wouldn't have.
is that something that we can soften up on maybe? Because I was okay with it afterward. I said, well, that's a really nice story. I mean, it'd be wonderful if things always went that way.
Sure.
But maybe we neglect a little bit. There's a lot of things that do go that way. I mean, I'll always like to believe there's more people that are heartfelt and trusting and warm and going to be respectful and forgiving than people that are out there doing bad things every day. I think what I took away from it was it's nice to see that actually highlighted for a change.
Yeah.
So as we move forward, Miles going to have any little baby brothers or sisters or anything? Or is Mom all pretty much done with this one?
Right now I'm thinking I think Mom's probably that's her
hands
baby.
full,
I think But I think more so, as the series goes forward, it's more incorporating friends into the story. Like the next one, I'll even tell you, the next one has, there'll be a new friend that kind of happens upon the property, and he's a toad named Jack, and that'll be the center.
He's a toad?
Yes, he's a toad. And the two squirrels will be in the story also. The feedback I've been getting from little ones is that they're a hit, and so they are going to be throughout the series.
That's nice.
Yeah. So
They're new friends.
Right, exactly. And so yeah.
Okay. Where's Dad? Where's Dad?
It's funny you asked that. It's so funny. My daughter and my mother asked that, and I didn't exclude Dad in any real reason. I just was centering on one relationship to try to simplify. A children's book is it's a short book with very few words, and you're trying to communicate a message as beautifully as possible in a very restrained situation.
Yeah.
So I simplified it.
And keep attention.
Exactly, because if you bring in all these different people, it might get a little confusing. So
how much do you feel that you should be politically correct in how you write? Or do you basically just write what you feel and people take it the right or wrong way? That's not your major concern, because you talk about, creative, artistic ability. But we live in a society where it seems everything's supposed to be politically correct. Every
Sure.
advertisement, every commercial on TV, we cover every sector. We make sure nobody's going to be offended.
Right.
How do you feel about that with regard to your writing?
That's interesting. I think we all, in today's day, at least for me, I could speak for myself, you kind of naturally, it's not something I ever thought about while I was writing this, because to be honest with you, I don't think anything in the book could really offend anyone. There is no, there's no bias at all. But at the same time, there's always, I think, in today's day, you're kind of in the back of your head always making sure that no one's feelings are hurt. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
So I guess you're right. They're probably just a natural, without even knowing, making sure no one is excluded.
Yeah, I could imagine in writing a book for someone older, teenagers, even adults, that you may or may not feel sensitive to a certain point. Say, you know what, this is my book. I'm writing it the way I want. But with young kids, I mean, it's so pushed on everybody nowadays that your story, your message is about forgiveness and just doing things in a nice way. I'll just making sure that, like the squirrels weren't like the little Lebanese guys.
Yeah, no.
And the bunny
Right.
wasn't.
No.
But they weren't stealing, kibbe and hummus, so it's okay. I could say it's because I'm Lebanese. I can say what I want. And it's my show, so I could say whatever I want.
say whatever you want.
Nobody's going to say anything about that
No.
either. And I don't have to be politically correct.
No.
We've been doing this 23 years, and we've been pretty lucky so far with no complaints.
I'm Sicilian and German, so,
So you
far
are
I'm
right.
okay.
You're right there. So as you move forward, and what constitutes a series? Because I go back to like all the books like the kids read, and there's series that seem to go on for like ever. Like volume 55.
Yeah, you need to know when to say, okay,
Enough.
I think it's enough. Yeah, absolutely.
So what do you feel? What do you feel get this message across, and then maybe branch off to something different?
I think the key to it is listening to the audience, listening to the feedback. Because what's nice about this is I'm out in the schools, I'm doing assemblies, speeches, and so forth, and so you hear. So it's also to be, mindful of that. But I think right now I have 4 or 5 books that I have mapped out in my head, and to me, if at that point I feel like it was a complete series. If everyone's asking for more and I've got more ideas, absolutely. And it's going to stay, it has the same integrity as the very first book. That to me is the key. I don't, it's kind of like those movies that have like 3 sequels and you're thinking, but the first one was the best one. You don't want to, do that
Right.
to yourself. So you want to make sure all of them are as equally as, valuable.
So you like input, and we're obviously going to tell people how to get the book, which
Yes.
I think is just a great, it's a wonderful story. I was really pleased. What kind of feedback have you had? I mean, like people that say, oh, it's just the greatest little story ever. People contact you and say, oh, this is such cornball, I would never read. It's boring, and wasted your time. And what kind of interaction do you have with those people?
It's interesting though, because it's been fabulous feedback. They've been getting a hold of me through my personal email, because I've been giving people my cards and so forth, and through Amazon.com, and give 5 stars, and I've had no negative feedback. The interesting thing is I've had a lot of people get a hold of me though and email me asking me how I did it. People who want to do the very same thing. I've
That's
actually
interesting.
gotten more feedback that way.
From people that want to write a book.
Yes, who are contacting me and want to meet with me and they really want to know how I did it step by step, because they've wanted to do this their whole life. And that was moving to me too. I've had a lot of people talk to me.
That brings up another point. We chatted a little bit earlier about the fact that obviously, the millions of dollars you're making on the book, you don't really have to work anymore. But part-time,
Yeah.
what your other career, ghostwriting and
Yes.
that, how does that work,
All
and
right.
how can people get, learn from you, or do you have to contact you if they're interested? In fact, I think some people aren't really even, I didn't know myself till quite a little while ago that what a ghostwriter was, not somebody who writes ghost stories.
Right. No, not a ghost story writer. It's funny, about a year and a half ago, this all kind of happened at the same time. About a year and a half ago, I decided that I wanted to make what I love to do and what my passion is, my everyday experience. And so I decided to go for it. So I did 2 things. I started the writing services business called Jamie Ruthenberg and Company Writing Services. And that is what you said was a ghostwriting, business writing, and review and editing company. And ghostwriting is not about writing ghost stories. You're basically, someone hires you on. And it might be someone who, and I write everything, by the way, from memoirs to business e-brochures to novels, children's books I could too. And a person comes to you and pays you, and maybe like an older woman who, let's say, has a life story she wants to tell, but feels kind of inadequate or not, very, she doesn't know if she could write it herself. So she comes in and she pays me, and we have constant feedback and close contact, and I write it for her in her voice, kind of like acting on paper. And so that's really what a ghostwriter is you're paid to write a story or a business, some kind of business.
Does if you were my ghostwriter and I wrote a book, would it say written by Tom Hakim
It'd be your name.
with Jamie Ruthenberg? Is that
Nope,
how-
they would just
like
be,
a news article? No.
It would be your name. And a lot of times that's up to the client. Interestingly, some clients, and I've experienced both, some clients are very, very, want mum's the word. They don't want anyone knowing you wrote this for them, and that's fine. In fact, I could even sign a non-disclosure form. Some are so excited they want the world to know, and they'll put their name on it, but they want everyone, at parties, this is my writer, and so that it's kind of fun either way. It just depends on the client.
And they can contact you. Obviously, we'll give that information. People that want to ask you more about that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Does everybody want to write a book?
It's so funny. It feels that way.
Everybody you talk to looks at you and say, I want to write a book.
Between the writing services business and then this series, the biggest feedback I get is everyone wants to take you aside and talk to you about the book they've always wanted to write. So,
when you were at the, when you do an appearance or a festival or whatever, how much do people actually want to tell their own story about the book they might write as opposed to actually ask you what you're doing?
About 95% of the time.
They
I probably know everybody else's story.
Yeah.
More than what,
Mine's the same way. Everybody tells me what they know about being financial consultants. So I mean, it's interesting because I find the same thing in conversation with people.
Yeah.
The book itself, where are we going to get it at? People want to get the book.
Available on Amazon.com and also CreateSpace.com. 5's, it says CreateSpace/560-4350. I think
And
that's,
John will put it up.
they'll
so
put it
we'll
up, but
okay.
it takes you directly to it, so you can do either way. Absolutely. And the next one again will be in March. The next one will be
How much does a book sell for?
$8.95.
$8.95. The next one will be
$8.95.
$8.95.
Yeah, it'll be $8.95.
I get a discount, right? Because I got
Sure.
the first one first, so I should
Absolutely.
get the second one. I should get some kind of deal.
Absolutely.
This always I found curious. Do you take this like to libraries and donate one and tell them here, have them people read our book?
That's all I've been doing. Yep.
Oh, is that right?
In fact, when it first came out in July, I pounded the pavement and went to the local library here, all around different cities, schools, principals, and just gave the book with a letter about its value, how it can be used, and
Do you donate books for certain causes when they, so they also can
I've done that several
talk
times.
to you about that?
Absolutely.
That's good. And you do, obviously, I know I spoke with my wife. She wanted to know if you did the reading in the schools, which you'll be happy to do.
Yes, I've been doing a lot of that, and I love it. I mean, I would love anybody want me to do that. I'd love to.
I only hear good things about that. I don't remember as a kid, because in school I didn't pay much attention. So if somebody was in reading, I probably didn't focus anyway. But I think that from the teachers I know, including both a son and daughter teach, that's something that the young kids, they become like enamored with the idea that someone else is there and reading to them or teaching them other than their everyday teacher.
Yeah, it's exciting and it's engaging for them. And the fact that I wrote the book and illustrated it is exciting to them because a lot of kids, it allows them to realize that they can do this too, and that's kind of what's always communicated, especially illustrations. Kids nowadays, when I was teaching, I used to talk about this a lot because they don't realize that someone actually, painted that. They think everything's more like a snapshot. And so when you talk about this, when they finally get it and you say, yeah, I actually painted this picture, and they look at you like, whoa, and they understand. So that's really fun because they get to see that there's a person behind who created this, and maybe I could do that too.
Would you stoop to the computer-generated animation and artwork?
With this series, I think the heart, now I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with it at all, but for me personally and this series, that would break my heart because I think that handmade feel to it is intrinsic to kind of what this is all about.
Yeah, because illustrators are kind of fading away.
They're a dying art. It's just like letter writing, it is somewhat of a dying art, yeah.
If you had in closing the opportunity to get in front of 100,000 parents, which you'll do with this show, and say, from my heart, this is really not this book, but this is why all of this is so important. The good messages, the reading, the making sure kids get the books. How would you make that appeal?
Honestly, very easily. You have this book with the wonderful themes and the family themes that are very important. You have the teaching points incorporated in. It has integrity in that way, and all of these wonderful aspects are embodied in this little character named Miles, who's honest and loving and respectful, and this character has integrity. And these are the kinds of characteristics that I believe that I would want my own daughter to identify with and to internalize. And that's what this series is all about, really, is doing the right thing and treating others as you'd want to be treated. And I think that is incredibly important nowadays. And this book actually is, kind of provides a framework for discussion between adult and child to reflect on these kinds of things. And what would you do in this situation? So, and to me, I'm honored to be able to create something that can contribute in some small way for children to reflect on how they see the world around them and how they treat others, and how everyone else deserves to be treated as well as they do.
Strictly as a business person, what if somebody came to you and said, I want to do a cartoon series about Miles, or a TV series, or I want to do a movie, Miles the movie, or we could have like Star Wars, Miles stuffed animals, and the squirrel stuffed animals, and does your mind go sometimes into that dimension?
It
Let's
does.
be realistic. We like making money. Somebody likes making money.
Absolutely. I mean, I could see, and to be honest with you, I could see that happening. I think that this kind of series is actually perfect for a little series on, on cable TV or wherever. And I actually have thought about making a little stuffed animal of Miles, who's very soft, because I have children who are actually sleeping with the book to hold on to him because they love Miles so much. And so an adorable little girl who couldn't see very well and just kept feeling the book and feeling the pages. So, there's great love for this character. So I have no problem with some of that. I mean, there's a point where I don't know if I'd go certain areas, but yeah.
I fall asleep with the book. I don't fall asleep. I fall asleep not by choice.
You're not
when I'm
hugging
holding
it.
my book.
Right, exactly.
No, I don't think I hug it by that time. I'm gone.
Exactly.
Okay, so once again, Miss Jamie Ruthenberg, local product that's so exciting. Chippewa Valley Schools and Mom living across the street. So proud of you when I talk to her, and should be. We're going to give all the information. We're going to tell people how to get the book. I want to make sure I let them know that they can get a hold of you. They can communicate with you. So
yes.
Teachers, just parents, people who bought the book, and let you know what they thought about it. And then the next one's coming out in the spring. Okay, well, maybe we'll bring you back in the spring, see how the squirrels are doing. Absolutely, and they'll have you can call me, you can email me, all the information will be up, and I would love it. Well, that's perfect. I invite it. Well, you know what, I had fun. I did. It's I do some book reviews and stuff. Usually I don't have as much fun reading them. It also had a lot of pictures, which I thought were great. So, Miles and the Sneaky Squirrels is only the beginning, and hopefully we'll hear a lot more from Jamie, and anything comes along, you just let us know. Thanks for coming. Promise you'll come back again. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. For People and Money, this is Tom Hakim.